having frank conversation. You might not like it, you just have to live with it. And that's my philosophy sometimes. I get into trouble for those things most of the time. And I was saddened because I drove and I was telling her, because the guy came to fetch me with a car from the airport yesterday. So we're driving, and of course you see Google to the shacks, and you're coming closer to the mountain, the colored areas and so on, getting closer to the mountain, and all of a sudden, the closer you get to the mountain, to the other side of the mountain, it looks sparkly clean. It's extraordinary how Cape Town it is. So I said, and she was going on about how, part of, and I believe in knowledge as well, so we're talking about how knowledge is important for both our activism and so on. In that process, and I value the knowledge and pressing it and actually documenting this type of work, and that's what she's doing as well. But there's something very problematic when you come to this place for me, and yesterday was one of them. How could people so poor live next to the airport? When you get closer to the mountain, it's all these white people. And I was like, and because I've been doing work on blackness, and when I was interviewing someone, and I was telling her yesterday as well, and someone was saying, actually one day we're going to close down the airport. They have this this anger of blackness that actually, maybe we need cleansing, white cleansing. Don't panic. It's not going to happen. Relax. Where that was one of the conversation. And I was like, actually, it's like, if you want peace in this country or one way, white people have to come to the party. And coming to the party is not, I recognize my whiteness and my privilege. Like, okay, yes, you do. Mazat off. Then what? There has to, and I was asking, like, there is a problem in this country where 80% of the majority are black people, and none of the white people know any of the languages. We have to sit here, and I have to speak in English, and it has to be recognized on that. And I was provoking her because with the Sasa scandal, Lumka was doing it in 702, and it's like, oh, this is like a white station and whatever, and let her hang up. But it's like the irony of the story. It's like part of it is the recognition of black people, that they exist. And part of recognizing it is actually learning our language as well. Part of recognizing is like people are living in shacks and there's land issues. I don't want, and I always say to her, and I joked with her yesterday, claim of the land is important. But also I said to her, like, I want to live in Killarney and Constantia if the land is free, I like the suburbs. I still like someone picking my strawberries for me. So, but there is something about also that you can have these properties at the same time people are living in shacks, and you think it's okay, and you think you can move on with your life, and these racial issues will not happen. You cannot discuss it, or it's tense. It will be tense indefinitely, and until these things are recognized. And I said, I don't know what it is like to be white in this country at this moment in time when these things are actually happening and the contradictions are sharpening with our government and so on. But I do think there is something that, I don't know, white people should have some imbizo somewhere and discuss what they're going to do if they care about this country, and actually how to come to the party and recognize the histories and the problems of this world. And I was saying that to her, that there has to be another step that needs to be taken. How it's taken, I think that conversation has to happen amongst white people. Or there's going to be war in this country. And I think, or bloodshed of some sort if this continues. So as we were talking about it, and also how it means for us in the sciences as well, doing this type of work, the knowledge, and also we were talking about epistemological issues. I mean, how do we then, as myself complicit, how do we go in and zoom out and objectify black people, which majority of us do in the social sciences in Africa. You study black people majority of the time. So how do we actually engage in those spaces, and what does it mean for us, and also in terms of our discipline, in terms of the sciences, in terms of knowledge. So also these are the tensions we find ourselves, because we're similar in one level, we're doing similar things in one level, but also we deviate because of our histories, but also because of where the change should arise from. So yeah, that always causes tension as well. Yeah.
Yeah, when we lived together, we were quite young, so it was about 23.
What are you now?
33.
Old enough.
It was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were also reflecting that it was an interesting time in terms of you growing a lot then, you kind of forming yourself, and it was quite challenging to be with these Marxists, because it was all the time, like, you know, hectic, changing the world, and but it was also good for me to push myself in that way, and it did change the kind of work I do and the kind of way that I see things. And then there were other experiences of everyday life that were also challenging. We both would like to speak about
yes, please do.
something that we went through together that, as young women, was shared pain, and also the journey that it took me on in having to kind of go into spaces that were quite difficult for me. But one of our colleagues and friends, so we were all a little bit of an incestuous group, you know, we all socialized together and we worked together, and so there was a closeness. And one of our friends, a young man, Sniko, who was doing his master's, and he was doing his master's on funerals, on black funerals. And he wasn't feeling well the one day, and in the end he had very advanced cancer. And he was a young, smart, energetic guy, so it was very shocking for us both, and we were at the airport when we got the news that he had died. But leading up to the death, you know, seeing him in hospital, and his family was from rural Eastern Cape, and he was here doing research and doing his studies, and so he went to a government hospital, and seeing him really waste away very quickly in conditions that were also not nice. Like, one of the things I remember was that there were a lot of sick people in his ward, and he would see the blood and the vomit and stuff, and then all their hospital robes would be put together and washed, and then you would get them, and it was just a sense of it not being a comfortable, comforting place. And yeah, that helplessness of we couldn't really do anything, and he just deteriorated, and he died, and then we had to deal with the grief together, and then I went to the funeral in rural Eastern Cape, which was very challenging for me, because being the only white person in that space.
You were traveling with Musa?
No, I couldn't come because we were preparing a trip to go to Germany. And I had to finish a documentary. Like, it was a complicated life, because at that time we had pressure because our center was closing for a number of reasons, and we were working, and there was pressure also for the funders to get the deliverables on time, and part of the product that we had to do was the documentary, and then I couldn't go to the funeral. Then she went to the funeral. Yeah.
But maybe I'm also jumping ahead, because when we were speaking earlier, like, what was it like for you, the experience of losing Sniko, and how we came together that day when we found out?
Yeah. Okay. I've known Sniko for a very long time. I mean, he was a close friend. We actually, before we moved to Auckland Park, I mean, we had a number of incidences at the center for a number of reasons. So we used to work at Soweto, so I used to share an office with him when I first started driving, actually. you know, he was the first passenger in my car. So, and he always said, oh, Jesus, okay, yeah, death, and like, you're gonna kill me anytime. So, you know, we used to joke about that. And I think the difficulties was when I find out her ex-husband, and because he said to me, he was in hospital, and he said, okay, the doctor doesn't know what's wrong with me, and so on. So Leo, which is Kim's ex-husband, said to me, okay, just take the photos, because I know someone outside who will actually assess the photos. So I was like, okay, and that time I didn't have a phone for the photos, so I smuggled one of the scans that they put there to Leo, and Leo found out, went to one of his friends who is a doctor, and found out actually he had colon cancer, and it has advanced and spread into his body. Then I had to come back with the news now to tell him, well, while you're waiting for the doctor, it's actually cancer, you know. And seeing him every day, I think that was the most difficult part, and coming home and calling his uncle because it was fine, checking up on him because they were coming to see him, but they were not sure when to come in because of money constraints and so on. And I think it was like, I think for both of us, in one level, it was a difficult period. I don't want to get into some other things. I don't know if you...
And when we were speaking about it earlier, the day that we found out that he had died,
Yeah.
We all gathered spontaneously in our flat. Me, you, Kagiso, and Piwa, and we had margaritas, and we spent the day reflecting and being together and drinking margaritas. And what Musa was saying to me earlier today over breakfast was that the significance of sharing such a painful moment together, and that in many ways, like, yes, we were having to grapple with the contradictions of race, but also in just grappling with life together, there's something that happens. And what Musa said to me was that the pain was the same. So we were sharing that pain, and there was something connecting in that. But going to the funeral was quite difficult for me because it was going to the rural Eastern Cape in a very traditional funeral. I was the only white person. It was the first traditional funeral I'd